Hello again, boys and girls. This is the channel that deals with the kibbutzim, and particularly since October the 7th, the war going on with Hamas. I am talking again to Brett Price in Vancouver, Canada. And Brett was a former volunteer in three kibbutzim 1990 and 1991. The three kibbutzim were Ein Gev on the Sea of Galilee, Ein Geddi on the Dead Sea, and Be'eri on the Gaza border, which since then, as we know, has undergone a terrible situation. But today, I would like to zoom back in time. How long ago? 33 years ago. Yeah. To when Brett and I were both younger. I have a feeling that he didn't have any gray hair, but I did have black hair and a lot of hair, and I looked much better than I look now. And Brett, tell me about your time in the kibbutzim.
Well, I started in kibbutz Be'eri. That was the first kibbutz that I went to, and I mean, at the time, I contacted the Jewish Community Center in Vancouver because I was tangentially aware of the volunteer program, and I thought that would be a really good way of going to the Middle East. And it could be like a staging point because there were ways that you could see other Middle Eastern countries from Israel by going through Egypt, and they didn't stamp your passport back then. And then the Gulf War happened. And so instead of delaying my trip, I decided I'd go anyways because,
Oh, that was especially adventurous on your part.
well, it's not something I put on my genius resume. I leave that part out. But, you know, I'm going to claim I was a toddler and not in my 20s when
Well,
I was in
when
Israel.
we're young and fancy free, we do things that with hindsight later on we say to myself, we say, you know, why did I do that?
Yes. Um, so I got like the full Israeli experience. I was there during the first Intifada, the first Gulf War, um, and I didn't know how it worked at all. The volunteer system. I was given a address to contact. I wrote them a letter because this is, of course, all before emails were common and stuff like that. And they told me um, to fill out the questionnaire, which was um, basically just like name, um, some ID kind of thing, uh, religion. I guess they wanted to know whether I was Jewish or not. And uh, when I plan to arrive in Israel. So I sent that in. They sent me back a reply, and it was basically just when you arrive in Israel, phone this number.
I see. Okay.
So I didn't even know where I was going,
I
kind
see.
of thing.
Okay.
I did. Uh, I went to New Zealand before I flew to Israel because once you're spending a lot of money on plane tickets, it's not too much. At least back 30 years ago, it wasn't too expensive to add more flights in, even if it's the other side of the world, kind of thing. So instead of paying like $1,200 for a round trip ticket to Israel with stops in Europe. It only cost me, I think it was $1,800 to add New Zealand because my stepfather is from New Zealand. So I could, and I was in New Zealand in 86, 87 between my grade 11th and 12th year of school.
Okay. So via New Zealand, you landed in Israel. And
Yeah.
when you got into Israel, that's when you phoned the number, or?
Yeah, I phoned the number. They told me I had, I think it was 6 days to arrive at Kibbutz Be'eri. They asked me where I was calling from, and they said like what city, because they didn't know whether I was in Haifa, Tel Aviv, or Jerusalem. I told them I was in Tel Aviv, and they said, okay, go to this bus stop in the city.
Okay.
And take this bus. Tell them you want to get off at Be'eri.
How old were you then?
I was 22.
22. So you got the bus and you arrived in Be'eri, and what did you find?
Well, I found a soldier with, well, I just a kibbutznik guard,
Yo.
and he asked me who I was,
Yo.
kind of thing. And I told him, my name's Brett, and I was told to arrive here as a volunteer. And he says, what's my name? And he kept looking for bread instead of Brett.
Bread. Okay. Lechem, bread.
Yes, that's a nickname that I got because Israelis, they can hear Bert fine, but they can't hear Brett. It turns into bread.
Okay.
That sort of the ET doesn't, it's not a sound in Hebrew,
bread.
I guess.
So I'll call you Brett. Anyway, you arrived, you came into the kibbutz, you found the person, I presume, in charge of volunteers.
Yeah, she came up and gave me a tour and said I had the rest of the day off.
Do you remember her name?
No, unfortunately, I can't remember her name. I remember what she looks like.
Okay.
Were you
impressed?
I was impressed by many of the women in Tel Aviv.
Okay, all right. There are many beautiful women around the country. I didn't tell you one thing, that one of them is my daughter. In 1997, she won the national supermodel competition.
Oh, well done. Good genes.
And she was only 14 and a half at the time. Anyway, back to Be'eri. You landed in Be'eri. You were shown into your room. I presume you met other volunteers. How many volunteers were there at that time?
Including myself, 7. Well, actually, it eventually became 7. A girl arrived, I think, a month later. So when I first arrived, there was just the 6 of us. There was 3 girls from South Africa, myself, and a couple from England. And that was it.
Okay. And where were you housed in the kibbutz? What was your accommodation?
We were housed in the first buildings of the kibbutz. The first buildings of the second location of Kibbutz Be'eri, because they moved after 1948, after the War of Independence. My understanding, if I remember my history correctly, was Kibbutz Be'eri moved. And it was the first buildings.
I see. So where did you work in Be'eri?
I was a dishwasher.
The dishwasher. Did that meet your expectations of being a volunteer in kibbutz?
No, not at all.
So you were a dishwasher. On a,
Every kibbutz, I became a dishwasher.
I see. So you're a professional dishwasher. How are your
Yeah.
hands? Clean?
Well, they were 30 years ago.
I see. Okay, so um, so did you stay, did you remain as a dishwasher or did you work in other places?
I in Derry, I stayed as a dishwasher, washing the fruit. And then they found out that I was a dishwasher in kibbutz Berry, and they asked me how I liked it, and I foolishly said, "Well, I didn't mind it." And so they instantly put me on washing dishes.
So the dishwasher was an automatic machine with a production line going through, and you were operating the machine, I presume.
Yeah, yeah. If I remember correctly, the kibbutzniks loaded it in the cafeteria.
Yeah,
It
on
went
one side
around,
of the conveyor belt.
yeah, and then it went in through the um, the dishwasher, and then we had to, and it went through a dryer, and then we just had to take them out. Um, it
So
was
it's
more,
very much like a mini version of a car wash.
yes, yeah, that's exactly what it was like. Um, the dishwasher in Kibbutz and Gev on the Kinneret Sea of Galilee, that one was more like a standard restaurant where you had to load the dishes in yourself,
Mhm.
rinse them, run the machine.
Mm.
They would come out dry, and then you unload them. So
I see. So when you finished the 3 periods of dishwashing in the different kibbutzim, did you write this down on your resume?
uh no, I think I left that out. It, I did a couple other jobs. I They brought me to in Berry, no, sorry, in Enged, they brought me to the banana plantation
Oh,
in
well,
the
I also know the
mornings.
banana plant.
Yeah, there was they needed extra people, and so I did that. But the restaurant owner asked how I liked it. I said I hated it because I had to get up at like 5 o'clock in the
It's
morning.
very heavy work,
Yeah, and because
carrying
I
clusters of bananas on your shoulder, 30 kilos. My
yeah, it
God, if
was
you're not used to this type of thing, you begin to feel it in your muscles.
yeah. When I was younger, I was a little bit fitter, but I hated getting up at 5 in the morning, um, kind of thing, because that's when they started.
Yeah, well, in
Um,
those days, 33 years ago, before climate change, there was light at 5:30 in the morning. Nowadays, I mean, at this time of year, which is the same time of year when you were there, it only gets light at about 7 o'clock. Okay.
um, so because I worked really well in the restaurant in Kibbutz and Gev, uh, the guy who was in charge of the restaurant pulled some strings with I guess the people in charge of where people work, and said, "I want this guy working with me." And there was hardly anybody on Kibbutz and Gev either. There was less than 10 people.
Mhm.
Uh,
And of course, again, I'm going to presume here that before the Gulf War, there were more volunteers because it was still the high point of the kibbutz volunteer
yeah,
movement. But I presume during the Gulf War, many left, which could be expected.
yeah. The only kibbutz that had a sizable volunteer population that I went to was kibbutz in Geddi on the Dead Sea, because it's a very popular um, destination for people,
Mhm.
and there was over 50 volunteers.
I see.
Kind of thing.
Also, the location, and it was quieter because in the 1990, 1991, when Saddam Hussein sent over 37 Scud missiles. In fact, they passed over Kibbutz
Yeah.
Ein Gev, and landed in Ramat Gan and Tel Aviv. And this was the only war that, in fact, we kept out of. And we let the United States and the coalition forces go into Iraq.
Yeah, I remember getting my cardboard box with the plastic strap where my gas mask was in.
That's another facet of that war. We
Yeah.
had these gas, and there were no gas attacks, but
No.
still we felt safe in our safe rooms with plastic on the windows
Yeah,
and
it was.
maybe a damp rag on the at the bottom of the door frame. And we were sitting there with our gas masks on.
Yeah, I was I was in Kibbutz and Geddi when that started. And then before it ended, I had decided to go north to Kibbutz and Gev because I said I wanted to go to the Kinneret.
Okay,
Kind
so
of thing.
tell me, what was your experience on the kibbutz? How did you feel working with the other volunteers and kibbutz members and everything else? What did you take away from this experience?
Well, each kibbutz was a got better and better, right? Like my experience in the kibbutz improved with each one that I went to.
In which way
And
did it improve?
I put more effort into it. I got more out of the experience. In Kibbutz and Geddi, there was many more people from Europe, like around the world. So I was able to experience like meeting a lot of people,
Mhm.
kind of thing. So that was like a really interesting time. That was sort of like the typical volunteer experience
Mhm.
where you're almost, living in parallel with the kibbutzniks, with the
Okay,
volunteers.
living in parallel with the kibbutz, did you feel that the kibbutz accepted you? How did they treat you? Did you form any relationships with the kibbutz members apart from the volunteers?
The people I worked with, um, I had good relationships with. In kibbutz Beri and in kibbutz and Geddi, the people that I worked with, very good relationships because I'm not lazy. So um, I find that at least at that time, if you put effort in, they really appreciated it, right?
Mhm.
Like if you didn't treat it as a holiday in the sense that I don't have to do anything or whatever. If you treated it like a job kind of thing, then they really appreciated you. And when I got to um, kibbutz and Gev on the Kinneret, the last one I was at, the kibbutzniks embraced me 100% completely. Like I was going to the social club, like not the volunteer social club.
Yes, yes, the clubhouse of the kibbutz, the Mordon.
Yeah, they invited me there. Like, I mean, I had to go with as a guest, but I was a guest of many people, kind of thing. So I was going often in the evening there. People
Tell
got to
me,
know me.
how long altogether, how long were you in each of the three kibbutzim?
I'm trying to remember.
Okay.
I think I was 2 months in Kibbutz Beri. Um, no, it would have to be three because by the time I got to Kibbutz and Geddi, um, Christmas had already passed. And there was nothing really done for the volunteers because there were so few of us in Beri. Um, and in Kibbutz and Geddi, I was only there for about 6 weeks. kind of thing. Oh, excuse me. I didn't stay long in kibbutz and Geddi because I really wanted to get up north, kind of thing. And I stopped in Jerusalem, and I was there for 2 weeks, kind of thing. I really wanted to do Jerusalem, and so when I got to and Gev, I was there for. I got an extension on my visa, like a kibbutz extension, and so I was there for about 6 months.
I see. So altogether, you spent the best part of a year in Israel.
Yeah.
So tell me, I'll ask it again. What did you take away from your kibbutz experience? What did you learn? Did it change your approach to life or different things?
Well, I learned that if you worked hard, no matter what job you did, there were rewards, kind
What
of
type
thing.
of rewards?
Well, just like I was a dishwasher. That's got to be the lowest job on the kibbutz. But I when I go- when I but I got treated like the kibbutzniks and Gav. They loved me. The guy that I worked for at the restaurant, he pulled me away
I
from
see.
like the banana. Like, that's the harvest time where any body gets put on there.
Do you remember his name?
No, unfortunately, I can't remember most of their names. Kind of thing. I remember a chap by the name of Offer, and his sister was named Kinneret after the Sea of Galilee. I remember working on a mushav for a month to get some money, because in a mushav they
You
pay you
know,
cash.
I'll just stop you for a moment. You know, the name Kinneret. I previously was a member of the Ganya Bet, and there was a young girl who was more or less together with me and members of the kibbutz and volunteers, and her name was Kinneret, and she moved from the Ganya Bet to kibbutz Be'eri. I don't know if you know this, but Kinneret, as a mother and a grandmother, tragically, she was one of the first victims of the Hamas attack in Be'eri. And she was caught on video being taken away as hostage. And I think later on, sadly, they found her body near the fence of the kibbutz Be'eri. Did you know that?
But no, no.
Okay.
The girl that I knew from kibbutz and Gev was in a wheelchair. She had a spinal injury,
I
I
see.
believe. And they eventually left the kibbutz because she wasn't happy with how they were adapting the quarters for being in the wheelchair.
Mm-hmm. I see.
And so the family left the kibbutz.
Okay, so what were your life experiences? How did it affect you later on after you left the kibbutz?
Well, I know what it's like to get a gun pointed at me.
By whom?
The IDF
I
in
see.
Jerusalem. What had happened is this was during the first Intifada, right?
Yeah, the first Arab Palestinian uprising. Yes.
Right. And so everybody was on high alert.
Mm-hmm.
And in Jerusalem, there's stairs that go on to the old wall,
Yes.
but they're blocked off for security reasons. And I, it was like the first day in Jerusalem. I had just stopped off at a hostel, left my stuff, put on a day pack, and was in shorts, t-shirt, and wanted to go to the old city of Jerusalem. And so I went and I saw one alley, small street, and I could see the stairs and I could see the old wall. And I thought, oh, well, I'll just go up and have a look here. And what it, at the time I didn't realize, but all the signs that said don't go up here had all been ripped off, right? As protests or whatever. And
Mhm.
so I walked up just like completely oblivious, walking like this. And suddenly I saw two soldiers running up, in front of me. And I thought, well, I guess I'll just sort of stand to the side to let them go by. And I looked behind me and there was another two soldiers running with a gun pointed at me. And I just went, got down on my knees and put my hands out, kind of thing. They hadn't actually yelled at anything, but I realized the gun was pointed at me, kind of thing. And I had walked about a half hour, right? Just so I was far from where the entrance was.
Mm.
They arrested me. They took me to the police station, and they asked me why I was there, kind of thing. And they went through all of my stuff. And of course, I didn't have my passport because you leave your passport in the hostel, kind of thing. And I told them my story, and at first they didn't believe me. And after about 45 minutes of me saying the same thing, kind of thing, I said, well, I could just show you. And for whatever reason, the officer said, okay. And so they took me to where it was, and it had to get my bearings because I told them where I got off. They drove me, and it wasn't the first alleyway, it was like the third one, kind of thing. And of course, I'm not entirely sure. And I could tell that they were getting a little bit, suspicious, kind of thing. And then I saw an awning that I recognized and said, yeah, it's up here. And when I got there, I saw the little triangles of the metal being ripped off and the rivet still there. But having not realized that I wasn't supposed to be up there, I never noticed.
Okay,
And
so that was your experience in
that was
Jerusalem
my
in the old
first day
city.
in Jerusalem, um, kind of thing. And he was actually quite kind. He said, I apologize. Like you didn't do it. You weren't supposed to be up there, but you didn't do anything wrong because the
Mhm.
signs were all ripped
Okay,
off.
well, I see that on my recording here, I'm running out of time. That was your experience in Jerusalem. What about your takeaway from your kibbutz experience?
Uh, Scud missiles looked pretty cool when they fly over you.
I see.
You started the war huddled in um, the makeshift shelters with the plastic and stuff like that, and then by the end of it, because none of the rockets are landing like anywhere near Kibbutz and Gev, you
Mhm.
know, some of the volunteers and some of the younger kibbutzniks um, in their 20s that had done service, we all ran to a hill that looked east towards Iraq with alcohol and mix. And
Mhm.
then we could lift our heads
You are
back.
talking about Sita Hill at the back of Ein Gev, where there are archaeological remains on top. I think.
I can't remember exactly what it was. I just remember we would rush there, kind of thing. There was about 50 people from volunteers and kibbutzniks, and we'd all be drinking. The radio would be playing, and we'd just watch the Scud missiles, and we'd be right at the crest so that we could push our head back so we could follow it over, flying over us,
I
kind
see.
of thing.
Well, that was an interesting experience, I presume.
It's not, yeah, it's not something you put on your genius resume.
I
But I
see.
but I learned that if you work hard, no matter what job you're doing, people will see it and appreciate it, and you'll get
I see.
rewarded.
So that was your takeaway for your future life back home in Canada.
Yeah, yeah, I would say I learned that there are rewards for doing a good job.
Okay,
Kind of
that's
thing.
very interesting. And when you went back to Canada, did you continue your career as a dishwasher?
No, I I put it in my rearview mirror and never looked back.
I see. Okay, well,
Um, I have
okay.
flashbacks doing the dishes at home. That's enough.
I see. Okay, well, we'll finish here. And tell me, did you keep in touch with any of the kibbutzniks or any of the volunteers?
Well, I had planned to, but one of the few negative experiences that I had in Israel was I had two of those travel pack pockets, and I had one that was a decoy and one that was the real one with my uh,
One was the
identification.
decoy. No.
Yeah, and what I put in the decoy was all of the names, numbers, and addresses of the people that I'd met on my trip. The kibbutzniks, um, the other volunteers that I'd met, and that got stolen.
All right, well, what I can help you with is if there is anybody else, a former volunteer in any one of those three kibbutzim of Engev, Geddi, and Be'eri who would like to renew the contact with you, this is your conduit for communication. Please
I can't
write.
remember their names. I mean, there was the um, it's been too many years. I'm too old.
Well, maybe some of them you wouldn't like to be in touch with.
But I remember like there was a couple, married couple from Kibbutz and Gev. And I can't remember his name. They were from South America, and her name was what is it? I know it.
Maria.
No, 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 no. It's a Spanish name.
Okay.
Julia,
Julio.
Julia, Julia.
Julia.
Yeah, instead of Julia,
Yes, yes.
Julia.
Okay, Julia, if you happen to be watching, get in touch with me at kibbutzivri at gmail.com and I'll put you in touch with Brett. I'm sure he would love to hear from you.
I I mean, there was many, many years ago. There was a Russian fella who had just immigrated to Israel. His name was Sasha, I believe.
Sasha, which is the nickname for somebody whose real name is Alex, I think, or something like that. I forget. Alexander, could be. Sasha. Okay, Sasha, if you are listening, get in touch with me. I'll put you in touch with Brett.
And there was Offer and his sister.
Arthur and your sister, are you listening? Come on, get in touch with me.
He was the chap that hooked me up with the Moshav.
I see. Which one Shav did you go on to then?
Oh, I can't remember. It was in the Negev,
I
like
see.
all the way to the other side of the country.
In the northwestern Negev, I mean,
I don't know. It was right on the border of Jordan.
on Jordan,
On
Moshav
the
on the border with Jordan. So maybe
Yeah,
you were in the Arava Valley.
it was south of the Dead Sea.
Yes,
So
that was the Arava Valley. There are a
yeah,
whole line of Moshavim and kibbutzim there.
yeah. I
Okay,
work.
all right, Brett. Thank you very much for sharing your experiences on kibbutzim and at the dishwasher. and under the Scud missiles. My goodness gracious me. And thank you really very, very much. If there are any other former volunteers who would like to share their experiences on this channel, please get in touch with me. Is there anything, before we end, Brett, is there anything you would like to ask me now? I forgot all about that.
I didn't even prepare a question.
Okay, well, don't worry about it. You can email me and we can get back on the video. All
Actually,
right.
where
Well,
is your kibbutz located?
how is my kibbutz looking?
No. Where is it located?
Located. I am in the northern part of the center of the kibbutz, halfway between Netanya on the coast and Hadera. So we are now, during this war period, we are in a very quiet part of Israel. And we have taken in 150 refugees from Kibbutz Gvaram, which is on the Gaza border. In fact, in my house, I have separated my house. I've divided it into two parts, and I have a young family living on the other side, and my neighbor in a short garden space between us. He also has given over half of his house to Israeli refugees from Kibbutz Gvaram. So what it is, we have 150 Gvaram Niks, members of Kibbutz Gvaram, inside of this kibbutz, and the other half of the community of Kibbutz Gvaram are over the road on the other kibbutz, which is Givat Chaim Ichud. And we have a community within a community, and particularly here between me and my neighbors in the small garden space, we have even a sub-community within a community within a community. And it's very, very nice here. And, you know, these two young families with us with altogether 4 children under the age of 5. It's very, very nice here, and they feel very well. And we ended the conversation here. If any of you is sitting on a story about your time in kibbutz, I would love to hear from you and put your story up here on this channel. Just as Brett and I talked in an unscripted discussion on Zoom, I would love to talk to you about your time in kibbutz. So please write to me at kibbutzivri@gmail.com. We can schedule a time to talk together on Zoom. I want to hear about your work experiences in kibbutz, the people you met, whether your expectations matched reality. I'm sure you've got a funny story to tell. Don't sit on that story. You can bring back some wonderful memories and share them with other people here on this channel. We can talk about anything about you and the kibbutz, particularly with the Hamas war going on. We can talk about the way it has impacted you. Even if you didn't work on kibbutz, perhaps you would like to give your opinion about the present war. Do you think Israel is doing the right thing? This is an open channel, a vlog. We can talk together. I want to hear from you. Your opinions are valid. You can write to me and we can set up a time to talk on Zoom. Even if we don't agree on issues, I would love to hear from you. Let me know by email at kibbutzivri@gmail.com. I'm sure that we can share some wonderful stories and opinions together with many other people here on this channel. So, keep well, shalom, and lehitraot. Lehitraot means see you soon. And don't forget to subscribe, share, comment below, and tap the like button. Thank you. I think you are all wonderful people.